or Carvey. He ain't got the glasses, so it's just Carvey P, and obviously Debo. Good morning, everybody.
Shalom, shalom, which is greetings, peace to the family out there.
Absolutely, it is a good day. Like I said, it's the first Friday. If anyone is wondering where Keith is at, last week I informed everyone that I will be here without Keith for last week and this week. As last week he was out on assignment, and then this week he is covering a funeral. And so I have the esteemed privilege to speak with you all. And then unlike last week, I have an additional guest with me. So good morning, everybody.
Thank goodness he has additional guests.
Yeah. Good to be here. Good to be here.
It is what it is.
We got some things to chop up. I think I caused a little bit of controversy.
You always do.
Well,
Wouldn't be Stingley, would you?
You know,
we'll get to that later.
They call it activism.
I think you should be here. I should get Meech in here right now and have him sit.
Hey, let's do it. Let's do it. And Brother Christopher.
Yeah, and then we may as well get Brother Allen in too, right?
Well, you know, and George.
Yeah.
You know, just do the whole full house. Now,
and I'm cool with all of them. You know, I don't got no issues with none of them, so it's all good for me.
That's what they told you.
That's what I know.
Oh, okay.
Well, you know, let's not be surprised if they pull up. I mean,
that would be nice. But the first thing that I wanted to touch on is the enormous and startling numbers of youth and just overall men and women going missing within the community. I can't remember the sheer veracity of numbers of people that have gone missing. And then to couple that, there seems to be some frustration with the times of these individuals missing to when it is reported for silver alerts or amber alerts, things of that nature, in particular to people of color. I can't remember a time where just so many people and youth are going missing. And so I wanted to open the phone lines up 414-444-5250 to just speak on their feelings. What's going on within our community? Is there any things that need to be done in order to keep our loved ones safe? You know, there are many times where usually after a certain time period of an individual that has gone missing, we won't see them again. And so how can we, one, cut down that time and just also cut down those numbers?
You know, I think there's several tangents that you could go off on related to what might be the cause. I mean, there's a lot of speculation about organ harvesting, one. The human trafficking piece, for two. And, you know, then the resurgence of, all of this talk on white nationalism and all that type of thing, and the hatred that is out here in our atmosphere, and, the political rhetoric that's out here as well. You know, all of this talk about a race war. And all of those things, and then particularly how it affects or is, has always been handled regarding our community. I mean, the response time,
right?
Taking it seriously, for as far as the authorities are concerned. When they're called, is generally, well, maybe they're not missing,
right?
Maybe they're with a family member. Maybe they ran away. Never given it the due respect of investigation. And that's pretty consistent, whether you are, notifying the authorities about, your loved one missing, or notifying the authorities about your rights being violated. The way they respond to it has really never changed. It's always, too little, too late, and the day after is always too late.
Right.
So I mean, I think they all have some merit, all of those different areas, particularly the organ harvesting, because there's just a lot of emotionally damaged people, and I can't say that those who are ailing and have the resources wouldn't you know lean in that direction and make things happen so that they could live longer and take the life of someone else just to do it. I mean, I've heard that piece being brought to the forefront.
Social media plays a tremendous role in getting the
Mm.
word out. There was a study done that was uh, depicting and just explaining the number of posts
Mm.
that were shared,
Okay.
giving a specific race of a person.
Okay.
And obviously, there was numbers that did not equal out to the number of cases for those that were white, and then those that were people of color.
Hmm.
So just even person to person,
Right.
it's on us to share those,
Absolutely.
to press that,
Absolutely.
that
Mhm.
button. 414-444-5250. Just touching on just the startling number of individuals gone missing. What's going on within the community? Um, are there any available resources that our community is lacking, and in particularly our youth? Um, I would say every day, and I'm not even
Mhm.
speaking in hyperbole. Every day I go on Facebook, there is a youth missing. Every day that I go
Under the
on
age 18
under the age of 18, there is, and
here in Milwaukee.
here in Milwaukee,
Wow.
and also because social media has such a broad
Yeah, reach.
touch and reach,
Hmm.
that I do see uh youth missing from other states as well.
Right. Right.
So
And then from our community particularly,
yeah,
as you
yeah. Oh,
mentioned,
every day.
being disproportionate to other
Right.
communities, right? So
And just when families first post or state that this child or this individual first went missing, to
mm,
when it is later reported, there was one individual that I recall that was missing for 3 weeks before a silver alert
was
came
even
out.
really.
Yeah,
Uh,
and so I want to know, what is the protocol for when an individual is reported missing, that it is reached out to
hmm,
the public, because again, these numbers are startling.
right.
Just the stories, hearing the ages of these youth, and adults, because it's not just youth that are gone missing
Mm.
as well.
I've been hearing recently more newscasts that give notification of these um, critical, not injured, but just critical condition. And I think they're more so pointing towards the emotional or some sort of psychological problem with these individuals, maybe medication or whatnot
Mhm.
that they are on, but being missing.
Right.
And I think that may be different than what you were pointing to.
But all of it is a contributing factor.
Okay. Okay.
Someone who is mentally distressed
Hmm.
definitely needs
Right.
extra set of eyes on them, in order to help them get back home. And
Right.
that's the
Right.
that's the biggest piece of it all, is these are family members of someone, and whatever the case may be that happened, we want them to come home safely,
Absolutely.
safely.
Absolutely.
And the fact that the fact that there is a rising toll number of
Mm,
individuals going missing on a daily basis, something has to be going on, and maybe it is an issue that's being ignored.
mm,
It could be socioeconomic issues. It could be a mental uh, or behavioral issues. Um, and then in all likelihood, it could be either human trafficking
right.
or sex trafficking.
Do they make a distinction between, the gender, um, male, female, when they give statistics about, you know, these youth missing? Is it a disproportionate number of females to males, or is it, just
I,
pretty consistent?
I'm a find that
Mm,
I wanna say that I have seen more female missing than
okay.
males missing, especially with youth.
Right.
But just earlier this year, we had a young infant child boy that was missing. Obviously, his remains was found.
That's not that Elijah Boo.
Hmm. Right.
Okay. Okay.
That
Okay.
was that's a
Mm-hmm.
younger male,
Mm-hmm.
infant. Um, but I'll definitely look that up.
Oh,
414-444-5250. You're here with Devon Jones, DJ the Protege, and Mr. Craig Stingley. It is the first Friday of October.
I think too, DJ, the piece you mentioned about the socioeconomic aspect of this, in particularly with the times that people talk about we're living in, the economics are more challenging, right? Cost of living is higher for everybody.
Hmm.
Um, some youth, particularly when they reach those teenage years, start to believe that having conflicts in the home,
Right.
um, and begin to think, well, I can do better than this on my own. And then that whole piece comes into play with, the 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 friends, and go hanging out,
Hmm.
and let's do whatever is necessary. And so we see a lot of unfortunately a lot of crime that develops from that. But that quasi gang type of mentality that says, you belong here, we
Right.
belong together,
Right.
and find our own way, make our own way. And all of that's built up to survive.
Hmm.
And there's some reality to it, but I think that too plays into how the authorities tend to look at our community in particular,
Yeah.
with our youth, when they do. There are many who do decide that I'm just going to go out here and you know try to make it on my own, because my
And,
mom and daddy struggling too.
right.
you know
And usually when during the school year,
mm,
kids are with their friends, they're with
right.
their teachers, and if they're in extracurricular activities as far as sports or any clubs, they are with those individuals more than
Hmm.
they're with their family members or being at home. And so those relationships that they build,
Yeah.
albeit positive or negative, those are relationships that have been built
Mm,
to extent to where that child will call that other child a friend.
right.
um Matters.
And take on the role of a family.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Hmm.
There are oftentimes people call their friends brothers,
Right.
or call their friends
Right.
sisters. And so just being in that type of circle that could foster some negative behaviors,
Yeah.
some negative thoughts, and in one case or another, be a shoulder to cry on,
Mm,
be a listening ear.
right.
A lot of times people just want to be heard, and then also a lot of times people want to feel comfortable
Hmm.
with speaking to
Right.
said
Right.
individual. And so whatever is going to your point, whatever is going on at home could foster a relationship with a certain group of people that could lead to some negative behaviors.
Right. I think too, that piece of it, the family being um, broken, and the struggles of to survive, particularly from a youth perspective today, um, when their needs are not being met at home, or even if they're the authority component that comes into the home, and whether it's the father or the mother, and those young people start to smell themselves, as it used to be said, and feel like I need to be heard, and I
Mhm.
need to be respected.
Right.
um I just think that piece of it is damaging, first of all, and for us it is something that happens too often. um and then if the mother and the father are struggling to make ends meet in today's economy and this world that we live in, that has always been more of a challenge, or I would even say, as you said earlier, disproportionately challenging for us than it is for other communities, then you know those dynamics of the family being functional,
Hmm.
right, start to enter in more and cause the youth to rebel, if you will, or stay away from home for a couple of days,
Right.
and then comes in that piece about them being missing. And how do we deal with that? How do you um get to the place where we can help our youth to start to understand that, open up, and even having the parents to be more constructive rather than destructive in dealing with their youth.
Hmm.
A lot of those things too, as you mentioned, I mean, we really haven't um, made them a priority,
Yeah.
because we've been so focused on surviving here ourselves, right? Thinking about the negative indicators within our community and in every socioeconomic area.
Right.
Um, Even to today, I mean, here we are, 2024, and still being at the lower rung of the ladder across most socioeconomic, indicators,
Hmm.
health wise, home ownership, savings, and the income gap, and all these types of things. And when you're a young person and you're hearing this, and this is all you've known. I mean, I think I'll be 64 this year, and that factor has always been something I've had to consider all my life, is that as a people, we got 80% of us that struggle, and there's 20% of us who find that route to advance and be able to capitalize on this system. you know I was just reading this morning, this brother, forget his actually, I'm gonna look it up, but made the Forbes 400 top most wealthiest people in the world. And
Hmm.
this brother was the wealthiest black man in America. I'm gonna have to look up his name, because I found it very interesting. He surpassed Robert Johnson
Really?
with the net worth of over $11 billion.
Hmm.
Again, both of them started there, or found their fortunes in technology, and the education piece that allowed them to do that. But that's few and far between
Right.
for us. And I think that to a degree that has, well, I know that it has had a lot to do with how these factors play into, and have played into, our community, um, throughout our whole sojourn here. I mean, the criminal justice system, you know, if we can call it justice,
Hmm.
the judicial system, the education system, every part of life in this society has always presented us with more of a challenge than everybody else. And so, I think that's part of that question, and finding the answer to that as well.
You are listening to Community Voice. My name is Devon Jones, DJ the Protege, here with Debo, Carvey, and Craig, and we will be right back. Back, you're listening to Community Voice. My name is Devon Jones, DJ the Protege. It is Free Flow Friday. I forgot to mention that earlier. So, 414-444-5250. Phone lines are open. And we are just touching on just the enormous amounts of reports that, we get via social media, word of mouth, and the news about individuals, particularly youth, but also adults just going missing within our community. Um, I am just really uh, dumbfounded on
Mm,
how many youth are leaving home, and then also a lot of the youth aren't leaving willingly. They are being abducted. I
yeah.
know earlier this year, actually the start of the school year, there was a report at Mesmer High School that two young students was walking to school, and an individual attempted to abduct them in broad daylight in the morning on their walk to school. Just how traumatic that sounds, and just how traumatic that is for those youth. I can't wrap my mind around having a child, and then them having to suffer through something like
Mm,
that. And I could assure you that, moving forward, those parents have probably decided that they will be only dropping those kids off and picking them up. There will be no catching the bus or walking to school from this point forward, just based off of that. Craig asked a question earlier about some statistics, excuse me, on just the number of youth and women um, that would come up missing within the state. And so, as of 2021, there was a study done, and it says that 71% of young girls and women accounted for human trafficking victims, while uh, young men and boys only accounted for 29%. So there is that difference that you was
mm,
speaking about earlier, and then also recently, obviously with social media being uh, such visible platforms,
mm,
and platforms with a wide reach, they have obviously become hotbeds
mm,
for human and sex trafficking victims. And so it's a wide range of things that
mm,
is happening within our community, and it's not just oh, this person doesn't like mom, so they ran away, or
right.
this
Right.
person uh got abducted because of some wild crazy person. It's a combination
Mm,
of everything. And then what you alluded to earlier was just um socioeconomic
yeah.
statuses and
Yeah.
issues that come awry, mental health issues and
Mm,
behavioral health issues. And then lastly, you touched on just relationships that our youth are building with each other.
mm. I think that piece on the emotional aspect of it is something that probably gets overlooked or not enough attention to it. I've heard um, Dr. Kwaku and the sister who's on with him talk, several times about how the trauma, that epigenetics piece that has followed us throughout the things, our again, our sojourn here. Um, the emotional aspect of that even from our own community, we really haven't paid enough attention to. How do our young people feel about the fact that we have been sort of relegated to the bottom rung of the ladder in this society? And again, it's not everybody, But if we look at even those statistics there, it's showing us, 70 to 30, 80, 20, that that factor
Mm-hmm.
range tends to have, some validity to it. And when we think about, 70, 80% of our people who would be struggling and have struggled to survive
Right.
for 200 plus years, it would, and then every time all that comes to us is, well, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, or, get up and apply yourself. And then that happens, then the rules change, or, something else is, another factor is put into the equation.
Mm-hmm.
And, the challenge is even more. And then we hear about somebody that has made it or achieved a certain level of status in the society, and that emotional trauma starts to play all over again in the head of a young person. I want to get there. I want to get there. And everything that's bombarding them, keeping them away from it. And, to a sense, it's almost like a double-minded type of, reality.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you see what you want, and you see people getting there, but you start to look at the road to get there, and, the support
Right.
that's needed as well. And those types of things, I think, have play a part. I really do. I think they play a part.
Yeah, like, what you just said just made me think about the old saying that, it takes a village, right?
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
the fact that you said that, and the fact that spoke to me, kind of relates to, this issue of our youth coming up missing. you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
it takes all of us to pour into each other,
Hmm.
and it takes all of us to look out for one another,
Right.
whether it is providing some discipline or
Hmm.
providing some encouragement. And I think that we have gotten away from
That
both.
village mentality. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Especially the village mentality. There was never a time where my mom allowed me in an environment where she did not allow a specific or certain individual to pour into me,
Hmm.
whether it was because I was doing what I was supposed to do, or when I wasn't.
Right.
And then also, because I was in that environment, those other and outside individuals wanted to speak to me,
Hmm.
right? They wanted to pour into me. They wanted to provide uh knowledge and inspiration and encouragement, and also some discipline,
Right.
to impart some wisdom into me for when I do gain my earthly title as an adult,
Hmm.
and moving around and making moves for myself and others.
That piece, though, it presents another side of the coin, in that we don't trust each other the way we used to,
Mhm.
um because of these very things, the sexual abuse type of thing that is in the atmosphere today. As you see that on social media, and I'm not a big social media fan, I'll just admit that.
Mhm.
Because of some of those types of things,
Mhm.
some of the things that I don't agree with, as far as, the explicit nature with some of the videos and things that are out there.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm one that believes you have to guard yourself sometimes from, allowing things to start to influence your mind and your life, right?
Right.
And so, to a degree, I think social media has had that detrimental effect. But um, the piece on how do we trust each other to allow for others to spend time with our youth, to have that positive influence on them. So that 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 sort of environment has to be cultivated
Mhm.
by those who we would deem to be responsible, right?
Right.
Your mom, when you were growing up, I'm sure she made sure and checked out the people who she allowed you to be with.
Mm-hmm.
Knew them personally.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those are some of the things that have changed in our community over the generations. And that, when I was a kid running up and down the street, Miss Thomas or Mr. Smith or Mr. Gross would correct us.
Mm-hmm.
you know and it was rare that they would have to put their hands on us, because your parents told you,
Right.
if somebody else have to discipline you physically, you better be sure it's gonna be double,
Mm-hmm.
right, when you got home.
Right.
And it wasn't so much a threat, but it was just a reverence for the authority.
Mm-hmm.
I would say. And I think that truth that was part of who we were as a people, has that information transfer has sort of been, left to the side. And we don't look at so much that community discipline, model any longer, but we tend to say, I don't even want the teachers to correct my child.
Yeah.
I don't want nobody else correcting my child. And part of it is because of that fear that they have is, someone else, not being able to correct themselves, let alone correct your child.
Mm-hmm.
Having experienced that I would say for my family and myself, to a tragic degree, in that, what happened with my son.
Mm-hmm.
So I have sort of an understanding, but these are people outside of our community. And that's something that we have, that we can, sort of pin that into as well. In that, I don't believe someone in my community would have done the same thing to my child, even though he was doing something that he had been taught not to do,
Mm-hmm.
or attempting to, which is not uncommon with youth to, attempt to shoplift something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then to be able to, recognize that as a parent, that's the truth. So I need to address that with my child,
Right.
and understand that person was trying to help me, rather than, to consider the alternative, or the other side of that coin, where, that person harmed my child when and they couldn't even control themselves. And I think that part plays a lot, a large part in how much can we really trust one another to do the right thing.
Well, we often I know that there was an instance that I will never get out of my mind, where a college student um, sexually assaulted a young college lady out in California, and the judge gave this kid basically a slap on the wrist and said that I don't want him to miss out on his college years.
Yeah.
And how infuriating that was for me. Keith put it in this perspective, whether it's right or wrong, it is what happened. He said, well, he saw himself, he saw his son, he
The
saw,
judge was Caucasian.
yeah,
Okay.
he saw something in that kid that reminded
White
him,
privilege.
yeah. And so
Absolutely.
when we discuss our youth, we have to do the same thing. We have to see ourselves in them. We have to see our brothers. We have to see our sisters,
Absolutely.
our nieces, our nephews, our sons, our daughters. And a lot of times we don't. And, it's only if an individual is taught to view elders with respect that they will begin to grow up and see elderly as their grandmothers,
Right.
their aunts, their uncles, their mothers, their grandfathers. It like you say, it starts with the village, and it starts with the elders, and the generation that is younger than the elders, right? Because
You
a
might
lot
be,
of times people say, man, I ain't got time for this.
you might
I
be
got my
onto
own,
something.
I got my own life.
Right.
But
Right.
it takes just a small conversation. It takes a little bit of encouragement. It takes a little bit of misdirection, if you will, in order to change and that make someone feel like you care. Because ultimately, when callers call, nobody is really wishing any ill on anybody. Everybody really wants, to live a solid life peacefully,
Mm-hmm.
right? But
Mm-hmm.
when certain elements arise, then certain emotions uh are invoked.
Right.
But if we get on that playing field of, that's my little niece or that's my little nephew.
Mm-hmm.
Keith say
but
all the time that he
to your
saw
point,
something in me,
to your
right?
point, because
Right.
I can certainly say, and I don't know, I don't see a whole heck of a lot of it these days, but even in my neighborhood growing up, I knew that was Mr. Buford's house, and that
Mm-hmm.
was Miss Nelson. That handle, put a
Mm-hmm.
handle on it. I bet not call her or call Paul Buford his name. Paul, hey
Mm-hmm.
Paul.
Right.
No, 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 man.
Right.
I'd have been still trying to pick up what was left of me.
Right.
But do your neighborhood kids call you Mr. Stingley?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so I think too, part of that is you requiring that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You informing that child or that young person,
Mm-hmm.
we're not peers.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
See,
Right.
that's the thing I think. And there's a lot of generational information transfer that has been missed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm saying that to say back to what your point was, in that as we have the village mentality, we can't, neglect the traditional things that have gotten us here.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there may be a different way to apply it or to present it,
Yeah.
right? The youth today, they're exposed to so much more, and you want to nurture that, right? You want to help them to use what they have. Because I have to recognize that when I was 10 years old, I got a 10-year-old grandson. When I was 10 years old, he's been exposed to a lot more than I was at 10.
Mm-hmm.
I think the difference is that my parents were more involved, both of my parents. And
Mm-hmm.
so the things that I was exposed to, it first was endowed in me and embedded in me. And then I was told, go out and use it, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And so my dad was a military man. And throughout that whole upbringing period of time, his character, right, was transferred, and those things that we talked about are part of our tradition were put into me. And then he said, now go out and use it. Don't just have it around your friends, but everybody that you're exposed to, this is how you carry yourself, because you got my name on you.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that part of that has gotten left behind. And I would say too that that too is has to be put into that equation of that 70-30-80-20 factor, because it's not everybody.
Right.
That's still happening in pockets of our community.
Mm-hmm.
And those are the ones who we see going off to college.
Mm-hmm.
We see even as youth trying to start up their own business because they see it growing up, and then they say to themselves, my mom and daddy did it. I saw this man right here who they took me to meet the other day at some seminar. That's all he talked about is the success from here, success from there,
Mm-hmm.
the black, the HBCU piece, and how those things play into even our youth and influencing them to say, that's the road I want to get on.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so we need to have more of that rather than what you talked about as it relates to this piece on the deference that's given to a black youth, the white youth over the black youth when they come into a court system.
Yeah.
How do we get more judges? How do we have the law enforcement that won't beat you to death like they did Tyree Nichols, instead saying, okay, like, Alina Taylor saying, let me steer you in the direction of, this agricultural program as your punishment when they come into the court system.
But how does that happen? Uh, you just struck a nerve when you mentioned Tyree Nichols.
Hmm.
That whole piece, is it self-hatred? What was going on that those should have been brothers
Right. I think a large part of
could
that
do
is
that to
right.
another black man?
Think about this guy. What's his name? Mark Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Byron Donald, Tim Scott.
Mm-hmm.
And the others. I mean, this gets us to that point about, your own interests.
Yeah.
Really, this whole vote piece, and how do we? I mean, what is our real interest? Because when somebody shows you who they are, as Maya Angelou said, right? We got Trump running, right? And his whole thing of, he could be a president. I'm sorry. I have a hard time after the 4 years he was in, after all of this campaigning that's been going on, seeing where anything that he has really put forth has any real substance to it.
You know, you said, how does that happen? There was a study. It's back in the 70s at Stanford, and they had these group of students, and they had role play. They gave titles to each individual. One half were guards and police officers, within the jail,
The law enforcement,
POs,
yeah,
COs, my bad. And then the others were inmates. The change that occurred rapidly within those confines of that study, that I believe that they had to stop within 2 to 3 days of conducting this experiment.
Right.
Yeah, that's the word, experiment, because the people who were giving the power of the COs and the guards, they was running amok. And then the people who were the inmates, they mentally was so shuttered and was defeated and so low that it became it was so out of control. And you could look this study up, the Stanford inmate study, that the inmates, they still had trauma, serious trauma, years after that experiment was over with,
because of the experiment. See, but I think,
but all of it was they were
actual inmates.
Such. Well, they were no. These were normal students. These
were free citizens.
Yeah, and they engaged in this experiment.
Okay. So they role played as students. We're gonna role play
as inmates and guards.
Okay.
And
did they segregate them by race, that type of thing, or is it just like
no? It was mixed.
Okay.
I think
in the college,
it was Stanford
college level. Stanford.
I really don't remember it being
because I think one of the things you mentioned earlier,
but to what Debo was asking, how does that happen? Power.
Yeah.
And when you feel that you have this perceived power,
the authority,
you're gonna act in such a way that you would think, if you didn't have that power, was unbecoming of that individual.
I think that plays a large part, and particularly as we've seen it, when you're going back to the point you made about this youth who was found has raped someone, right? Sexual assault. And then he comes before the judge, and the judge says, well, I don't want to interfere with his college career, right? That judge is, and it's someone who looks like him. So his discretion allows him to say, this is the road I'm going to send you on, under the authority that I have, right? That power. And so to a point, I think that piece has gotten really distorted as it relates to how what is equal protection and due process. And then, is there such a thing as justice when you have to come before somebody who has the discretion, or supposed to have the discretion, to make the best decision for everybody that comes before them?
So I misspoke. The experiment actually ended after 6 days. But the psychological abuse of the prisoners by the guards was increasingly brutal, that they had to end it, because someone was going
traumatized,
potentially killed.
What?
Yeah, it's a documentary or a film on it as well. It's called the Stanford
what was the
Prison
setting?
Experiment.
What did they do? They took regular students and put them in a prison? setting?
Well, no,
Or
they made up this mock
A
little.
makeshift prison
Yeah,
in the
they made a
school.
makeshift prison in the school. They gave one group of students this title, and they gave another group of
Wow.
students this other title, and then they began to in the beginning they be because everybody thought it was like a little joke, but in the beginning they would have to make up certain scenarios,
Hmm.
and then after those scenarios were basically put into motion, then natural human interaction started to happen, and it like I said,
Do
it
what
was
I said.
right.
Right.
They was
There you
hitting,
go.
they was hitting them,
There you go.
they was hitting them. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah.
Um, I,
That's an interesting
this
dynamic
was
right
done
there.
in 1971. This was done in
Mm.
1971. Uh,
you gonna bring up a study that was done before I was born?
But it's still applicable today.
damn, that was before you was born.
Yeah, I wasn't born until '73.
Oh, I
I
thought,
was 11.
I thought, I thought he crossed that sea with Moses.
But that's an interesting dynamic in that the do what I say.
Right.
Not what I do.
Yeah. Even I mean, just the authority to say,
No, yeah,
you know,
that's
and
what police be on.
it's the role play, right? So they knew, okay, at first we start out, I'm a willingly be in this role as a inmate.
Mhm.
And okay, and whether they pick numbers or however they determine who was going to be what. Once they got those, positions assigned, now all of a sudden, I got this authority.
Yeah.
Do what I say. Respect what I say. I don't have to respect you.
And it took an outside individual to come in and be like, "Hey, this ain't right.
Something's
Yeah, y'all better
Y'all better end this.
because the experiment people
Oh, my
who was
goodness.
doing the study, they
right.
was just intrigued
They was caught up in it.
on how these people was acting. But this is Community Voice. My name is Devon Jones, DJ the Protege, here with Mr. Craig Stingley. As always, every first Friday of the month, here with Carvey and Debo. When we come right back, we will enter the Protege's perspective. As people evolve throughout the course of their life, mentally, physically, and spiritually, there usually is a general sense of a process that is present and developing in an effort to reach the desired destination. For example, most scholars want to achieve academic greatness, and recognizing that this is the type of goal that is usually earned, a process will be developed to achieve such greatness. In about 95% of the students' processes, studying will be an intricate portion of the process in order to achieve academic greatness. This will be considered the general rule. The general rule is a standard that is applicable to most, if not all, people. Most students do well when they study and involve themselves with necessary resources to aid them in being a successful student. No one rule is absolute, and there will always be an exception to every rule. Keeping the analogy of scholars wanting academic greatness, there are fragments of students who do exceptionally well and do very little studying or no studying at all. This is called the exception to the rule. Often people are enamored with the exceptions because it's different. Those who chose a different route and were able to gain success are revered as geniuses. In that same token, negating that there are more people who chose that same route and fell short. Falling short isn't a negative observation, but skipping steps and falling short presents numerous issues. Exceptions are just that. The process has intricate steps for a reason. Depending on who, what, when, where, why, and sometimes how, steps can't be skipped either. Don't be a fool. The exception is not the rule. That is the protege's perspective for this week. I just I always had this perspective on my mind that the exception isn't the rule, and often when we see the exception, we speak of it as if it is the rule, and that can sometimes conflate a discussion and
Mm.
just our overall thinking of a certain scenario or circumstances.
Hmm.
Um, Earlier, Craig said that he started some controversy, and he kind of started some controversy. It wasn't no controversy for me because I shut it down. Keith, I don't even think he responded.
Yeah.
Keith
Oh,
didn't even
hell no.
respond. But Craig made a statement, and you know how I am with that. He said that myself and Keith were giving Black Trump supporters a pass, and I said,
Oh,
"Hell
hell
no."
no. That's what he said.
Is that what you said?
I sent the gift. But I don't give no passes.
Well,
That's his
let me say
motto.
this. Keith would certainly be guilty of that, and his he tries to be diplomatic, and you're entitled to your opinion, and that's that man's right to vote how he. So I get that part of it. You, I can't say that you do, but you're not as outgoing on the matter as you could be either.
I I
Hmm.
you know they always say don't argue with a fool because those from afar can't tell
Mm.
who's who. So one, I acknowledge that just we are different people and
Hmm.
there will be different ideologies, just me being me and the next individual
Mm.
being them. And then two, I do recognize that one, that's different, but also it's not the rule. They That's the exception. Majority of people that look like us are not followers of the GOP. That's just That's just the sheer numbers. And like I was speaking in a perspective, you know, the general rule is usually based on the majority. Now we get enamored with the minority because it's different.
Yeah, but come on, man. How do you get a Dick Cheney, Republican former vice president,
Mm-hmm.
who endorses Harris?
Mm-hmm.
His daughter, Liz Cheney, at one point was like one of the third highest ranking in the Republican Party.
She was tripping too.
She has now endorsed.
Craig,
So I mean,
Craig
folks
brought her
that,
up numerous times.
Folks that are a part of that party and have been staunch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, leaders of that party, if you will. They ain't crazy. They know what they see.
Right.
And how can you see anything different than what they've seen up close and personal?
It's just like a vegan and somebody who loves chicken. How dare you eat that chicken? How dare you wear that mink coat? It's the same thing.
It's not.
It is the same thing. It's
not.
It's staunch differences on opposite ends of the spectrum, which you usually get.
The man's a fool.
And is he the only one?
He's the only one.
First of all, how many fools have you met?
Yeah, but
right.
He's the only fool I know that's trying to run the country.
No, it was plenty fools that tried to run the country.
No, none of them. None of them displayed and/or have made the kind of the stuff the man says alone should tell you his elevator ain't going all the way to the top.
To Meech's point, it's many people that have made those type of statements. It's just that he has the platform to where everybody's able to hear him.
And I
ain't
think
nobody else said drink the bleach.
Throughout history, there have been people who have had the elements of crazy, but not the full package like Trump has. And
hey, have y'all heard this? Let me play this for y'all. Let's just show you how ignorant this guy is. Now, here you are, and I'm sure you get briefed.
Mm-hmm.
They tell you so has endorsed you. They're here. They're in the crowd. You're gonna call them up, and they're gonna have words. Watch this.
Latin music superstar Nikki Jam. Do you know Nikki? She's hot. Where's Nikki? Thank you, Nikki. Great to be having you here. Now you have to get. Oh, look.
You know why he said, "Oh, look"? Because Nikki was a man.
I'm glad he came up.
Come on, man.
But that's who he is.
Hot
A
Latin superstar.
He a goofball.
And it was a whole man.
He goofy. I mean, a lot of people thought Mickey Free was a woman too.
Wait, you said he was goofy?
Yeah, he's super goofy.
No. Trump is
goofy, man.
Trump is someone who is confused. He's a double-minded person.
I don't think he confused.
Oh yeah, he confused.
He's very sure on who he told us and what he want to do.
He told us.
Did y'all see the report yesterday? His wife now says she's pro-life.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But
you can't control your own household.
But we never even thought that they were still together. The only reason why we saw them together in public was because of the assassination attempt.
See, let me tell you why
if
I
that
say
didn't
Trump
happen,
is,
they wouldn't have been here together.
He's confused, and he's a double-minded person because the scriptures tell us a double-minded person is unstable in all their ways. And have you ever seen anybody more unstable in all their ways than Donald Trump?
Nope.
I mean, this man goes from one extreme to the next.
There may be some out there, but I'm just speaking in terms of.
And Kamala Harris doing the debate, she said, this is a time for serious people. Right? Because what he's talking about doing requires that. I mean, this person is talking about being the one who's making decisions that affect all y'all lives. That's why I said what I said about somebody that puts their support behind this man. Because, if you can vote for him, when you hear him say, try bleach, when you hear him say what he just said in that and all the other things that he has not what you hear reports on. You've seen him in these news broadcasts, these news
wasn't edited.
Yeah,
It was
live
like
and
in living
no,
color.
Here right on tape. You know that this wasn't AI generated.
Mhm.
I mean, we can distinguish between what is falsely, put up and put before you, and what is real, right? This live video, and too many times, this man, his instability comes to the forefront, and he told us straight out in the debate, I have concepts.
Right.
Everything about the presidency for Donald Trump is a concept that is related to the seriousness of that job, right? I mean, it's just Michelle says oftentimes, everybody cannot do certain jobs. There's a certain amount of training and background you have to have in order to be able to run, a Fortune 500 company. I'm sorry, there just is. Now, I'm not saying everybody can't learn to do it, but when you say you want to be the president, there's a certain amount of exposure to things and a seriousness that you have to have about yourself. The critical thinking part alone.
This guy wouldn't even pay attention when in his morning briefings. Just whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
His mind is
Because
when am I gonna get to the first hole?
But we've already known that he isn't the type of person to prepare. I mean, we've seen that in countless debates. So I mean, these reports, are they shocking? No. The things that come out of his mouth we've seen him even before he ran for president in 2016. Absolutely. Remember his big fiasco, his big fight with Rosie O'Donnell? The just
and everything else that he touched.
So nothing he says is shocking to me, and I'm just wondering why is it shocking to y'all?
Oh, it's not shocking.
See, I don't understand how you can get the nomination from a party when every senator,
because it's about winning.
Man, when they were there that day, January 6th, come on, man.
I think the real question
feared
is,
for their lives.
We become accustomed to seeing people, and primarily white men, right? Mm-hmm. That this country has said are the ones who are qualified to be in that role, right? And they've had a certain level of, some experience from government, right? And now we've come to recognize, and even though Barack, was well qualified, we've always believed that role, was not going to ever be filled by a black or minority person, right? Mm-hmm. But when it happened, then that changed all of that. At the same time, it didn't change the fact that that person had to have some qualifications of understanding how government operated.
They lowered the standards.
Yeah. Well, no. I'm saying that Barack exceeded the standard well beyond
but they lowered the standards after him.
Oh, well, after that, I think it was just like, no, we just got to get it back. We got to get that spot back, because that's the spot.
We don't care who.
It didn't matter who. Somebody who was gonna sit in that seat and be able to push the pen to do what we need. Because I believe that it's an insecurity thing, and it's always been an insecurity thing as it relates to this thing about what, and I dread to use the word, but white, supremacy. Mm-hmm. I call it privilege. I call it insecurity more than anything else, because that's really what it is. When you start to think that you're the only one who can fill this role, and yet still you're required to have the same treatment if we both in the hospital for the same ailment, right? So that's ridiculous. But this is where Trump is. He's thinking he's superior, right? And there's none superior about him.
Real quick, just want to give a shout out to everyone who is watching us on Facebook Live. Miss Barbara Smith said, good morning to you. And Miss Denise Crumble, who's always watching on YouTube, good morning to you. Caller, thank you for your patience. You're on there.
So I just want to prefix a couple things. And from the last statement, I'll go on from there. So every person that runs for president has a sense of narcissism to them, because they feel like they're the only one available to be able to run the country. So
I mean, we saw that with Biden. He thought he was the only one,
only one
that could beat Trump,
that's able to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. They all have a sense of narcissism to them to feel like they're the only ones. And then what Debo was saying about the clip with the misunderstanding with Nikki. So, okay, all right, with the name, you would think, and this is a female. But you were still willing to vote for somebody that was shaking invisible people's hands. So, like, make that make sense. Because if you was on the other foot, you were like, look at Trump. So you was trying to shake somebody's hand that wasn't there. But since it's your team, you omit it.
Wait. You talking about Biden?
Yes.
Right?
I ain't voting for Biden.
Yes.
No. I would agree that Biden was too old to be in the office any longer.
Y'all wasn't saying that before,
but no,
I didn't disagree
with
now
the move.
When he was first elected,
quarterbacking now.
No, but I didn't disagree with the move. We didn't have a choice.
It's Monday morning quarterbacking.
Those two different scenarios.
What else you gonna do?
Oh, you had a choice.
Those are two different scenarios. When they both first ran, Biden was more qualified than Trump when they both first ran 4 years ago.
Yeah.
He was more capable. He was more capable mentally than he was 4 years ago.
But
he was not 4 years ago. That's why he was in the basement all that time.
No.
They knew he wasn't a viable candidate. This didn't just happen in 2023 and 2024. He's been like that since 2020.
Well, Trump definitely wasn't qualified at that time.
I mean, but he was already president. So, I mean, if I assume the position,
Trump being in that role
and worked in that role for 4 years, am I still not qualified over an individual who has never been in that position?
Trump has introduced more dysfunction into this country than any other president in the history of the country.
I think that's a misnomer. See, and you guys get this misunderstanding about. So he's bellicose. He's grandiose when it comes to the things that he's going to do and he's going to say. Right. Remember, you got scriptural people, right?
So no. Trump has no controls over how the things that come out of his mouth.
Right. I mean, he's a reactionary. He's going to say the first thing that comes out of his mouth. There's no filter there, and so I get it. Some people like that. Some people don't. So, but what I'm saying is, the person that you're going to like the most is going to be the person that can get over on you the most. The same thing that happened with the magical Negro that was in that we was like, oh yeah, I was sucked into that feel good moment in 2008. Yeah, but then I woke up was like, hold up. You're no different from this person over here that you was running against. You're the same person.
You're referring to Barack.
So after I matured a little bit and got out of that feel good moment, I'm like, hold up, your policies are exactly the same.
Well, in government, you recognize that you
fall back on this and then realize what I was thinking and what I was feeling is two different things.
No, I'm saying in government, you recognize you have to have both houses in order to get anything passed, right?
He had both houses for 2 years.
And so therein came the health care bill and all the other things that have really
the Heritage Foundation bill.
Well, everybody knows that there are lobbyists who come in to put forth their agendas, to try to get this country moving in a certain. We could do that, but we don't. It's the collective effort of these groups. I mean, the LGBTQ group came together to get, basically to display the power that they have as a collective. That's the way this country has always operated. That's what they're doing now. You see, the MAGA GOP has been co-opted, hijacked by a man who is unstable. Period. Trump is not stable. So if Biden was unstable and unfit, Trump is absolutely unstable and unfit.
So, caller, it sounds like you won't vote for either Trump or Harris. Is there any other candidate that you see that is stable enough to assume the presidency?
He's voting for Trump.
No, see, that's the remedial thinking that, oh well, if I'm not voting for this person, I gotta be voting for that person. No, that's not the case. I'll tell you the exact person that I would vote for, that I feel like their policies that would be what would be monumental to moving the country forward and making sure that most Americans, like 80% of Americans, can start to affording a $400 emergency. Neither candidate is going to do that right now.
Who is the
Now,
candidate
if
you
we
would vote
had
for?
this particular person, which is a third-party person by the name of Jill Stein, we can get that ball rolling. Because each candidate, I'm telling you, no matter if it's Trump or if it's Kamala,
What about Cornel West?
all of them are still going to go to war. They're still going to give money to Israel. They're still going to give money to Ukraine. For example, what is $750 going to do when you just gave $8 billion to Ukraine? I can't
Well,
rebuild my home on 800,
No.
on $750.
Yeah.
Well, that's just to replace some, that's a bandage. You're right. That's right. And as it relates to the storm that just came through, but when you think about the bigger picture, as it relates to maintaining what is proven over time to be the best, foundational.
All right, caller. Thank you for your call.
Aspect of this society, it lies in that Constitution. Even though it wasn't drafted for us, even though all of that's true, but yet and still you have to have some structure in place in order for everybody to have the privilege of being able to say, I have rights. And this all goes back to things we were talking about earlier. If when you have the judge or the people in authority who have this discretion to disregard your rights is where the problem is. It's not the document, it's the people. And so when you rely on people to have the discretion to use discretion properly, and then they don't,
right,
that's where the problem is.
Caller, thank you for your patience. You're on air.
Call back.
Yep.
And that's just something that's always been there. And I mean, I hear it all the time. The Constitution wasn't written for us. I'll be the first one to agree. I mean, that's where it started. That's true.
But I mean, it was. And,
that's true. At the same time,
but we also have to acknowledge that the individuals who were upholding the Constitution over 90. 90 is probably a lot. Let's just say 80%. No, let's just say 75%.
Say 80-20. That typical 80-20 rule.
You know, it wasn't applicable to. It was only applicable to the
20%.
Right.
And the landowners, the white landowners who were, had their objective was we want to control everything. That's the same thing we got now.
Caller, thank you for your call. You're on there.
I'm listening. I think about what Trump says, let's make America great again. America's never been really great for the black and brown people, but it's blessed because of us. And we look at, let me say this here. I got a guy that I grew up with, he's Trump supporter. And I'm honestly, I have quit talking to him. I don't fool with him. Anybody that your grandmama, your grandbabies, your cousins, your mama is on aid, and you running after Trump, that bothers me. But as a people, we finally see a place where we come from under the thumb of this crazy regime that we've been going through for 400 years. It's time for us to see something different, but we so against each other. Even though as a black woman, we don't even want to fight for that. And the educated woman, that is a problem.
Yeah, it's against your own interests. And those are the kinds of things that keeps us separated, is that, we, as DJ said earlier, as it relates to people who have the, free will to vote for whomever they want to. But when it comes to your own interests, they recognized a long time ago, if we keep them divided, put some in the house, some in the field, that's going to bring about this role play thing that gets stuck in a person's mind where they think I got a little bit more power than them ones out there in the field. And so when the master send me out,
thank you, caller,
I'm the one telling them what to do.
Caller, thank you for your call. You're on air.
Hey, good morning, Brother DJ, Brother Craig.
Good morning.
Shalom.
Hey, man, listen, I just cannot understand when it comes to, I know that people have a right to vote for who they want to vote for. I get that. But when it comes to black people, especially like black men, that the previous caller that was, I've heard him call before. He's a Trump supporter, and the things that, I mean, just going back to renting his apartments or
in
his
full
buildings.
transparency, he did say that he not voting for him. He will vote for Jill Stein. So
that's what he said.
that.
But I've heard him
on the
before.
ballot, though.
I've heard him before defending and his support for Donald Trump. But that's neither here nor there. But just somebody help me understand renting his apartments or buildings, the Central Park 5, the things he said about Haitian people, Hispanic people, Latino, whatever. And we as black people in America, where do you think we fit on the spectrum? If he feels that way about them, what makes you think he doesn't feel that way about you?
Right.
That you're different. That's what just boggles my mind. You know, you can talk about Biden doing invisible handshakes or however you interpret that, but just look at the body of work that Donald Trump did. And we have I guess they say an increase of black men are supporting him, but I can't figure it out. And I'm not even trying to understand it. I don't know what it is going on, but he just made a statement about Congo and African people. So black people in America, where do you think you fit in on that spectrum?
Oh, years ago when he said that, you know, the countries in Africa were S-hole countries, right?
Yeah.
And so again, this is the same person who we talk. I'm saying straight out, he's unstable. He's double-minded, unstable in all his ways. And when we think about somebody like that who would support somebody like a Mark Robinson, this black man has said he would own slaves. He wants slavery to be reinstituted.
He's something else. He
absolutely.
But let's get this. Let's get this next caller. Caller, thank you for your call. You're on there.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hotep family.
Hotep.
My question is, have you all seen the billboard on Atkinson and Keith?
Yeah.
That's Trump. Do you think that we're giving him too much attention as a community? If we just ran a billboard or an ad to show how he wants to give the police officers immunity, and if we get pulled over for anything, they will have the right to hit us upside the head and do what they want to do. Why would anyone want to vote for a president like that?
But you know,
and we're not supposed to be single issue voters, but to me, that's one that really stands out in regards to police brutality.
Well, you know, there are going to be people who will say, well, if you just comply and do whatever you're told, then they won't do that to you. You have that side, but I mean, we have a number of people that have complied, and they still ended up dead.
I think the statement that scares me the most when it comes to Donald Trump was the statement he said, and I don't know if y'all caught it. Yeah, you caught it. He said, "You just don't have to do this one more time, and after that, you won't have to worry about it anymore."
Yeah. You won't have to vote anymore. Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
What is he insinuating? What is he saying?
See, a lot of people just dismiss it, and I've heard people who will say, "Well, he was being sarcastic."
Nah.
You know, and
go back to that whole dictatorship piece.
Absolutely,
but everybody has said that. That's one where it's pie in the sky, and I just because I mean, now
you can't be dismissive about anything. This guy says.
I'm definitely dismissive on anything he said because I've already said that he a fool. But let's just go back to before 45. Who was the most hated president?
Richard Nixon,
Ronald Reagan,
Bush, George W.
I mean, you could go back even beyond that.
So
for us,
he's making George W. Bush look like he is king. Right?
George W. don't even endorse him.
Right. But I'm saying the fact that we are harping on him for saying that George W. Bush said the same thing.
Well, I think we have to recognize
they all say this, but they know that there is no dictatorship when it's coming to this presidency. It's just not.
Well, that's
So
to
you
me,
can
that's
say
the same
whatever.
mentality that we get when we say as a people the Constitution wasn't written for us. We know that these people have been about the mission of maintaining control over this government since they started it. So
Mhm.
that really hasn't changed. The thing is, the difference is that Trump is trying to, basically compile all of the elements that each one of them individual prior presidents have shown us. Right. So Bush and Reagan and all the way back to Washington, they set out to be in control. That there's no secret there. But when you got somebody like this who's straight out saying, I'm gonna be a dictator.
Day
I mean,
one. Day one.
I wanna go. My best friend is Kim Jong Un and Putin. Who in this country today would really realistically, with a serious mind, say, I would rather live under a Putin government than under this so-called democracy that we've been living under? I know all of my lifetime. There's no real question or choice there. I don't want to go be under someone who is able to just come, and this is what he's saying. I can come and tell the FBI to pick you up and put you in jail, and then I'll find a reason to keep you there. No, I would rather have to deal with what we've been dealing with, because I know at least I got a voice, right? And we can go and protest something. But if you got somebody who is saying, I'm the authoritarian, I make all the rules.
I mean, look what the and I know it's superficial. There has to be more teeth to it than it appears. But when you start talking about he has immunity as the president, any president does. But they really put that law in place in hopes that he will take that seat. That he has immunity. He could, if he thought that it was for national security purposes, he could just kill you.
See, so even right now, with that being in place, as the Supreme Court has said, if Biden turned around and said, lock up Trump because he's a national security threat, and believed it and put it into place, these people would lose their mind.
Yep.
There would be a civil war tomorrow.
Yep.
Right. And it's just thinking that you have to have something like that in place before you even get a chance, if you get a chance to be the person in that seat again, behind, as they call the resolute desk, right? Where you sign things and they become reality.
Caller, thank you for your patience. You're on there.
Yes. Good morning.
Good morning.
What I have to say is this. I've seen so many African descendants, young youths that don't know the history. And they're voting for Trump just because the PPR loans and stuff that he gave out, that was already written in place by Obama. The thing is, they get in Michigan school of Trump giving them money when they didn't have no money. But it was the thing that Trump and the rich Republicans got caught stealing from America Bank by giving this tax incentive back to the most wealthiest. But they got caught. So they only pitched out crumbs. Trump's pitched out crumbs to try to make like he was doing a job for all. The thing is, Trump is trying to take us back to the 1700s. And that's the reason why history on our part is not being recognized or being in practice and taken out of practice at school, because they want new slaves. Okay. And then at the same time, if you don't apply when you graduate for the army or it's a service versus being a forced draft, you will not get any college fundaments or anything, or an insurance or anything that Scott Walker started this whole thing that he took to Washington with the Republican Party as being the president of the Republican Party Assembly. Now, the thing is that he tricking and saying you won't have to vote. That means that he's going to take your vote. And there would be no reason to be having or be able to complain to any doors of government, because they would shut it all down, where even with the IRS, he's going to attack to make sure they protect his money for the most rich. He's sending us into a time where it's with a new moderation of what you call New World War, a new war order. And he's going to trick what you call black people just accepted being called black, which I don't call myself being black, because black was called a derogative name by you're not doing your job in the doggone heat when you was a slave. The thing is that they think that Trump is for them, but he only knows that he has to get black votes. And people accept him to be called black. And that's why reparations are not recognized with us, because we're not connecting ourselves with African descendants from Africa that have been raped, enslaved, and have not been recognized in the hands of another race.
Well, yeah, you touched on
a
couple of different things there.
Yep, I appreciate your
call. I'm going
call.
to the doctor right now. I try to call back.
Yep, appreciate your call.
Yeah.
Phone lines are open, 414-444-5250. This is Community Voice. I'm here with Craig Stingley, Debo, Carvey, and my name is Devon Jones, DJ the Protege. We will be right back.
Republican Senate candidate Eric Hovde showed up to the Milwaukee Juneteenth Festival. He said he was having a good time.
I'm here having fun. This is one heck of a party.
But then Eric Hovde was asked if there was anything he was going to take away about Black culture. Hovde's answer?
Look, I've spent a lot of time in Black culture. I've spent a lot of time in places like Africa because I have homeless shelters.
Run that back for me? Eric Hovde is asked about Black culture, and the first thing that comes to mind is taking trips to Africa and homeless shelters? Hovde's comments were called, quote, ignorant, and they reek of stereotype and white paternalism. But when Eric Hovde was asked about the criticism, he said, do I have to respond to the stupidity of that question? Eric Hovde.
I've spent a lot of time in places like Africa.
What's wrong with this guy?
I'm Tammy Baldwin, running for Senate, and I approve this message.
Paid for by Tammy Baldwin for Senate.
Come on out to Rain for First Friday, October 4th, 5:30 to 9 p.m., located at 231 East Buffalo Street. Are you looking for a new place to go? Something grown and sexy, where bosses mingle to promote their business, feel supported, and meet new people? Then you want to go to the First Friday Business Mixer to engage, elevate, and expand. The National Executives Network and the Wisconsin Black Chamber invite you to the monthly First Friday After Work Party. If you have a business to promote or an idea to launch, the First Friday After Work Party is where you want to be. That's at Rain Event Lounge, and it's free. October 4th, 231 East Buffalo Street. See you there.
Over 10 million illegals have entered America during Kamala Harris's reign as the border czar.
Border czar.
Border czar?
Border czar.
And when questioned on the NBC Nightly News,
you haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't.
Criminal aliens murdering Americans, cartels trafficking poison, benefits for illegals. Kamala Harris is no laughing matter.
Right for America, paid for and is responsible for the content of this ad.
Hardworking family businesses, ambitious entrepreneurs, relationship builders, and job creators. Businesses like yours are the heart of Wisconsin, and Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation lives to help you realize your vision. Join us for Marketplace Wisconsin, the Governor's Conference on Diverse Business Development. It will be held on December 11th and 12th at the Baird Center in Milwaukee and virtually on the 10th. Presented by WEDC, Marketplace Wisconsin is a chance for minority, women, LGBTQ+, veteran-owned and small businesses to network, explore government contracting, and grow. You keep our state moving with construction, janitorial services, logistics and transportation, technology, medical services, and more. And Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation wants to help propel your success. Let's look forward together. Register for Marketplace Wisconsin today at marketplacewisconsin.com.
.860 AM, 106.5 FM, WNOV, The Voice.
Welcome back. You are listening to Community Voice. Caller, thank you for your patience. You're on air.
Good morning to you, brother.
Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for taking my call. Assalamu alaikum to you all.
Walaikum salam, bro.
Yes, sir. listening as well, I haven't been listening for a while, so I have to be honest. But listening today, and not to make light of it or anything, I know this to be what is like our Achilles heel. The ultimate and primary problem when people attempt to speak about our history here or throughout the entirety of the world, they don't even know the basics to begin to express the truth of our experience. It comes all very confused and mixed with truth and falsehood. And if you mix truth with falsehood, that voids whatever truth it is you're trying to express. You can't mix a lie with the truth and declare it as the truth. As the scripture teaches by the prophets in the Holy Bible, as it is called, we are styled as blind, deaf, and dumb. A carcass where the eagles fly, so shall the carcass be gathered. I think that is the correct expression. And I'm not beyond reproach. Anyway, since we are a carcass and styled as blind, deaf, and dumb, and even dead, people come and we are picked off our bones like vultures. When they see a carcass, they begin to circle it. Then they come to the earth, and then they devour the carcass. That's the purpose of vultures or bloodsuckers. All in all, I'm saying this is if you lack comprehensive knowledge of yourself, there's no way you'll be able to spot your enemy, because you won't even understand that you are truly oppressed. And everything that you talk about, it will be trivial and can be deemed as nonsense. In the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Bible, let's speak about the Bible, how the people perish for the lack of knowledge. And the best knowledge is the knowledge of self and the knowledge of God. If you have knowledge of self, then you'll have knowledge of God. You understand the order. And then you won't be able to be made a fool or used as a tool to be weaponized against your people and ultimately perpetuating the reality of your oppressor. And lastly, I say this. No true revolutionary has ever attempted to work within the confines of the oppressor to transform him into his brother.
Brother Christopher, before you go, let me share something with you.
Sir.
I agree with what you just said. As a matter of fact, something I wrote this morning before coming in said, I believe the most significant problem the so-called African American has lived with during our sojourn in the U.S. is that we do not know and we deny who we are.
Exactly.
We all have some degree or suffer from Stockholm syndrome.
Yes, sir.
As demonstrated by our complacency in this prejudiced, discriminatory, biased, and racist system that we have, basically failed to galvanize ourselves and change for our own collective benefit. And then there's a couple more thoughts that I had to that.
It sounds beautiful.
But I agree with what you said. I think that is one of the
foundational things.
Go ahead, brother.
Brother Craig, original salute. I salute you, brother, because you are a soldier. And again, we must understand that if we are to revolt, first we must revolt against what we have been taught in our mind. Jesus said, "What? Be ye transformed by the renewing of
your mind." That's right.
Exactly. That's what the scripture is supposed to do. And it's not to make you a better person to be utilized, but
by the one who has made you other than yourself in every aspect of what you consider yourself.
And we see that played out in someone like Mark Robinson, or particularly, and to an extreme, of course, because I think to a degree, most of us have been traumatized to the point to where, our survival requires us to, get acclimated to where we are.
And I always just, it just goes back to the perspective and to your discussion, because you didn't really get to why you thought we was giving passes, but those are those exceptions.
That's true.
I've acknowledged that those exceptions are eye-popping. It's different. It gets your attention, and sometimes it gets your attention in a very abrupt way. But the general sense isn't what those people are and what they represent. Caller, thank you for your patience. You're on air.
Well, I always say if you really want to get results, once you turn into the enemy, you will know how to take the enemy down. Other thing is, if you close the Bible, you will find out your real strength. It's called do unto others. What you do to me, I'll do to you. And everything should not have to be a trial and tribulation when it comes to that so-called good book. So I tell people like this, turn into the enemy, and you will know how to take the enemy down. Because turning the other cheek out of fear is why we in the predicament we are today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
So the reason I said it was a pass is because I think that what we have to recognize is that most of the people who are participating in the electoral process, right, to a degree have at least a base level of understanding of their vote counts. And so you have to, with that, say also that these people at least have given enough thought to say that's essentially like he's saying, I'm gonna put my chip in so that I can at least have a bet on the table, or when I do go to raise my voice about something that's wrong, then they can't say, well, you didn't participate in the process, so you don't have a voice. So those people who they say in particular, and then as a black man, when they say that 26% of black men are supporting Trump, I have to look at that to a degree. It is reflective of me.
No, it's not.
Well, it is.
No, it's not.
Is. And only in that there's something about that 20%, if you will. So let's use the 80-20 again.
Yeah, but they could be putting that out there, man. Just
to stir up things.
But
as candy.
But at the end of the day, whatever I do is not representative of you two individually, and not even generally, because we all move in different ways. There has to be something that we have to get away with, and it's that if one black person does this, then it's representative of every other black person. No, it's not. It's not. Because there are many things that I've said. Many people have said, you is a fool for saying this. And, clearly I don't speak for them. Right. So why does one person who chooses to vote for this particular man, which on all accounts, us three have agreed is egregious, why is this now representative of me in a negative light? It is, and I'm telling you, it's not, because one, I've already told you I don't ascribe to that, and two, we're already different individuals anyway. And then lastly, that's just the exception to the rule.
That's true. I know that we're all not a monolith, right? So all that piece is a given. But what I'm saying is that
we think that we are, because when others do something differently, then we give enormous amount of pushback. So we say that we aren't a monolith, but our thinking is that we still are.
I would say more so that society thinks we all think the same, right? The way they respond to us means that
but what is society and who is society?
Right? No. I'm just saying in general, that's the way they approach us. So they say there's 26%. Then we have to consider too the percentage of black men who are not voting, right? So if we were to say, just
so then
for the sake of this,
so then
that number, and the point I'm gonna make is this: if they were to say 26% of black men are supporting Trump, and then let's just say another 15% of them aren't voting at all, right? So right in there, you got 40% of black men that are just basically not doing something to their own interests. That's the piece I'm talking about. That's where it's reflective of me, because then it gets back to the village piece that we talked about earlier. Then it gets back to us doing as a collective what is best for us, which is what we see happening with all the other ethnic groups in this society. When Christopher called and he talked about us knowing who we are. When you here in this country, if you come with a history and with a heritage, and you can operate within those from that perspective and start to do things on a collective, then you can achieve what they call the American dream at a greater clip. 20% struggling and 80% achieving, rather than the opposite always being the primary result. So this is what I'm saying, is that those individuals who would allow for us to lose the gains that we've had, particularly if this man becomes a dictator, the things that our ancestors struggled for us to be able to be here and to do what we're doing right now are on the table to be chopped off, because this man is talking about those things. We don't deserve them. And everybody that's supporting them. Here it is again. Mark Robinson, he straight out said we need to go back to slavery because he thought it was a good thing. And you got other black men who are, and I shudder to even call them men, that are saying, things similar to that, in that, this whole thing that the governor of Florida said about, that slavery was a training program. All of this nonsense that is coming out of these people.
Right, but when people say that, are they taken seriously?
And that may be part of the problem, DJ.
No,
they're not taken seriously.
They're not taken seriously. We are coming.
They weren't taken seriously on the January 6th.
That's what let me do this. Yeah, this is the end of the program. Craig, do you have?
I had to throw that in there.
Craig, do you have any final words?
Hey, Shalom. Be peaceful. Shalom alaikum.
Hey,
peace.
Today will never come again. Be a blessing, because life is, which means you are. Encourage someone, because one day you'll need the same. Let your words heal, and soon your wounds will too. Don't be ashamed by your shortcomings, because through that pain, there's a lesson gained. If there's no honesty, there's no growth. To become a better you, it's essential to have both. All right. Be safe, Milwaukee. Okay. Good Lord willing, the creek don't rise. Keith will be back with you on Monday. And as we always say, let's go from this place of peace.
Peace.